All right, this is a recording for 8.1. Let me share my screen and show you what we need. So in 8.1, this is the lecture that we go over, and it's needing for us to get an ANOVA table. Now in the lecture, I'll explain what this is about, but it's essentially doing a test to see whether you've got different groups, whether there is a difference in the average, at least somewhere from one group to another group. But this is what I'm going to show you right now is how to get the ANOVA table using StatKey. Now in the lecture example, in case you want to go back and try this one for yourself to see where did this ANOVA table come from, we are using StatKey. And here is the ANOVA for difference in means. And again, this is a test to see whether there's a difference in means for more than two groups. And when you click on this, it's going to ask you for your data. And in the lecture handout, we were doing this example about average for these serials. The only issue is when you go to StatKey to look for this one, there's not immediately the serial example. You won't see this unless you've gone and uploaded the data for yourself. So just a quick reminder on how we do that. If you're not seeing the serial there, you do need to go back to our course materials, and in the textbook and resources, there are the data sets, and I'm using Firefox. It seems to work really well when you're downloading data sets so that you can keep the CSV format. So here is your serial, and you would click this, you would download it to your desktop or somewhere on your computer, your downloads. And then I've already done that. So whenever I come over here to StatKey, I'm able to then go to the upload file and go to my downloads and find the serial. Again, you won't need to do this step for your homework. I'll explain why in a moment, but you would click your serial. And this is just if you want to do this example. Fiber is the quantitative variable, and company is Kellogg's, General Mills, and Quaker are the brands. So you would click those two, click OK, and it's going to give you the sample data here over to the right. But right here is where you need to click to get the ANOVA table. So once you click this, the ANOVA table pops out, and that's where we're getting our degrees of freedom, sum of squares, mean sum of squares, and our F statistic. So on one of the homework examples, you're going to copy the information down, just like we did here, into the ANOVA table. But the next part is to then take your F statistic and go see whether it's significant or not. And so right here in the lesson, we'll talk about how it's not significant, but you're using the F distribution. So over here in StatKey, once you got your ANOVA table, you're done. You can come out. You can go here to the F distribution. So over here to the right, and it's going to ask for your degrees of freedom. And so what that is also from the ANOVA table, these are your two different degrees of freedom. This is for the numerator. All this first row is your numerator. This second row is your denominator. So you're going to do 2 over 27. And I've got that here in the lecture notes, 2 and 27 with your F statistic of the 0.69. I'm going to go put all that information here. So 2 and 27, click OK. And then it's always going to be a right tail. And then down here is where you're going to put your statistic, the 0.69. And because this is not very extreme, we're not going to get a big p-value. Excuse me, we're not going to get a small p-value. In this case, it's very large, 0.651. And so in that case, we would not be able to reject since the p-value is just too large. Not significant to suggest that there's not enough evidence to suggest that there's a difference in the average for the fibers for these three different serials. Here's an example that we'll do in the lesson where you're not going to StatKey to get the ANOVA table. We're generating it ourselves with at least some of the sum of squares given to us. But for your homework, I want to show you just a couple of things. For the homework, there's going to be one example where you're going to need StatKey. This is for the football and brain size. And so when you get to the ANOVA, you'll state your hypothesis, you'll recognize the number of groups, sample size, but this is completely blank, but StatKey does the sum of squares for us. It actually does the entire ANOVA table. So you're going to be doing brain size football group. So when you go here to, and I'm just going to show you at least where it's at. You're going to go to the ANOVA, difference in means, and then you won't need to upload the file because it is one of the ones over here. And so you'll see your brain football group. And again, it's the sample data is here, but you'll click on the ANOVA table. And again, I'll let you do that because it's going to pop up the ANOVA table here so that you can fill it out. All the degrees of freedom, the sum of squares, the mean sum of squares, and the F statistic. Now, once you have your F statistic, then you'll take that, the 2 degrees of freedom that are here and here, your numerator denominator, you'll take that value for the F and you're going to go get your P value. Now, that is an example I want you to do. There's also another completing the table that I want you to do. But let me just show you one more thing. Suppose I wanted to just give you a fresh start where I'm in StatKey. I've got my ANOVA difference in means. Suppose I'm doing a different example, not the one in your homework, where I'm doing student, let's do hangout hours by school pressure. I'm just picking something here where you're going to have 4 different groups, assuming that the averages are not different. So you've got very little, a lot, some, and none. These are your 4 groups. And you want your ANOVA table. It's going to come right over here. And so this is your numerator degree of freedom, which is a 3. This is your denominator degree of freedom, which is 443. And then this is your F statistic, which is 4.755. And so you got your ANOVA table, and then you would go to the F distribution. This is like what you would do with your homework example. Go to your F distribution, put in your degrees of freedom, 3, 443, click OK, turn on your right tail, and then put your F here, which again, I'm just using the ANOVA that I just had up on my screen a moment ago, 4.755. Click OK to get our p-value. So the p-value here would be 0.0028, which would be considered significant at 5%, meaning there is a difference, some difference, at least for 2 groups in the last 4 groups that we were looking for the, I think, what was that example real quick? Let me go back to it. It was ANOVA, and it was this little example here, just in case you missed it. Seniors hang out by school pressure. There is enough evidence to suggest that there's a difference depending on like which group that you're in for, that's it. I'll stop right there. All right. But you're going to do one related to the context of like football. So check that out. And I'm going to stop recording there, but I hope this helps. Let me know if you ran into any questions though.